Okay, thank you for watching here on YouTube at Blooming Light. Whether or not you are logging in live or you're just watching this at a later time and date, if you're someone that's coming in a benevolence presence, a benevolence energy, in other words, no ill will or hidden dishonor to you. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Okay, so I shouldn't say I appreciate because learn something about that word. I'm going to say I am thankful and grateful for you. Okay, so today's topic is actually a part two from yesterday when I spoke about communal narcissism. So in this video, we're going to give an example, and I'm going to keep it at one example or one type of an example. And you all out there can run with it, but I like to give true to life, real examples because it helps to make things make sense. Otherwise, it just sounds like we're just regurgitating a bunch of words, gibberish, factoids, cliches, catchphrases, definitions. So I like to say, like, okay, for an example, that's real stuff, okay? Because otherwise you're like, okay, so how am I supposed to, what that's, it's like, and what that's got to do with how I'm living? Okay, so, and this actually happened. So this is what I like about some of the examples that I give because it'd be stuff that either I actually experienced by fact or someone else that I know. Okay. So this was many years ago. Okay. And some of you that have followed my story long enough, you know that I relocated from Southern California, which is where I am originally from, to Las Vegas, Nevada, with family, with um, my maternal eldest sibling, or whom I thought to be my maternal eldest sibling. Okay. And before that, what you all need to know that there were several attempts to get me to go there. Prior to 2016, there were several attempts by her to get me to relocate to Nevada. Okay. And I would go out there and visit and kind of stay a couple days. And it'll kind of be like it'll always flop. It didn't sit, didn't fit, blase, blase. Now in 2016, when it finally happened, again, there's a lot behind what took place prior to that. Okay. And there's telltale signs that I can see in hindsight that should have been red flags, but we're not going to get into that with this video. So an example, there was a situation, this was in 2019, was it? Possibly 2019, okay, earlier, I want to say around summertime-ish, okay? And the last go-round that I gave myself, having not known the fullness as to why certain things was happening to me and my son the way it was just yet, only had suspicions, and certain things was coming up, and certain dreams, just odd behavior that I wouldn't have never banked on prior to getting to Nevada. Okay, because it's like you got to experience it firsthand. It's not something you'll ever really think. Okay, so as typical, it never really lasts long anytime I get too close to any of them for too long. So, because I had started asserting myself. I had started speaking up. I had started, setting boundaries. I was on the beginning side of it back then. Okay, so it was still a lot to do, but I was getting counseling. I was going to see therapists as well as holistic approach. So there was a couple of things that was happening back then. Okay. And so they don't like that. And this is something you learn about toxic family dynamics as well, that kind of operate like a narcissistic organism. Okay, especially if you're the scapegoat or if you're the target, they don't like that. Okay. So it was time to go. Okay. And I had to remind you, I didn't have anybody in Vegas. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any connections like that. I had met few folks here and there, but nothing significant. Right. And so this adds to the coldness of their behavior because they knew that full well, didn't they? Now, so it was time for me to go. You know, they do that same cold shouldering, you know, when you stand up for yourself, once you're uncomfortable, and then it's kind of like, and then it's like, oh, are you gonna, would you know, the same little trashy juvenile bullshit that they always do. And I attempted to offer gas money to two of her daughters, because it's like, well, okay, I got this set up, woo-de-woo, gotta go, you know. And that went, you know, one totally ignored me, true to life like her mother. The other one pretended, you know, like they were not available or some bullshit, okay? So I still, you know, I figured it out, blah, blah, blah. Oddly enough, you know, because it's like, okay. Because all of that is to try to like, all that behavior is to, first and foremost, try to get you in this energy of beggared. Well, let's see how they, let's see how they, you know, make it now, nigga. Let's see how they get out of here because we ain't gonna do shit. Because we ain't gonna do shit. Let's see, you know, whoop, right? Scandalous. But these are church-going motherfuckers. But that's another video. And so I figured out, I somehow, because I had met a person. How did I meet this person? It was someone that I had met at one of the trashy jobs out there, okay? at one of at one of them trashy jobs out there, and we had connected here and there and exchanged numbers, and so I was like, hey, you know, and I, you know, of course, I offered her, you know, the same, you know, gas money and so forth. And I still had to get creative. And then I had to use like the transportation department because out there they have it for disabled people. So I had to get very creative in order to get all of our belongings because, again, the person I reached out to was not able to do that. That was only the initial to get us out of there. And then I had to still creatively figure out how to, you know, get back there and get all of the rest of the belongings. So we did it, right? But here is where we're going with this video. The day that we left, I was like, okay, Darrell, you know, let's go. We had packed up the person's vehicle and stuff. And I was like, he was using her laptop, one of, I should say, because she had a couple, one for work, one for personal or something like that. And so he was using her laptop because he likes, that's what he do. He liked to be online and type up shit and look for shit, whatever, right? So I was like, okay, you know, I was ready. I said, would you please? I was like, go give back to your, you know, to change your auntie, go give her their laptop so we can be on air about. And he said, okay. And, you know, so he picked it up, unplugged it and everything like that and took it back and to her room where she was. And I could hear, and she was like, oh, well, you know, it's okay. You know what? You can have it. You can keep it. It's okay. And he was, you know, like, oh, yeah, all excited. She was like, yeah, you can have it. Go on and keep it. And I was like, So he took that, you know, with us where we're going. How is this an example of entrapment? And how is this an example of communal narcissism is where I'm going? Because remember, I said that I want to use real examples so that some of you out there, targeted individuals, as you're trying to figure out everything, but as well as just people that are looking and don't really know don't know how to decipher these types of things, okay? So how this is an example. So on the surface, it looks like she did a very kind act to her nephew, doesn't it? It looks like she was just being a loving auntie, a sacrificial, loving aunt that, just, wanted to gift him something since she knew that he likes computers and stuff and that he didn't have one. So on surface level, this looks like somebody that was being selfless and kind and generous to their nephew. Anybody looking on the surface would agree and would say that that person was being kind. They were being generous, considering that they knew that the nephew didn't have a computer and that they enjoy a computer. Right? But what if I told you this? What if I told you that that was a tool for tracking? You wouldn't have thought that, huh? See, the thing about technology and computers and, things like that, these things are trackable. Okay, that means you can surveillance activity, huh? So that meant that if he were using it or I was using it for any reason and it was their computer, what does it mean? It means that they have access to our emails, they have access to our location. It's an entrapment. It was a tool. It was a tool used in order to be able to keep tabs on us illegally. Now, some would say, if they try to wiggle their way out of that, they could have made some kind of saying, well, I just wanted to be able to know where they're at just in case something happened. That's the same individual that didn't care about kicking him out or me out late at night for no reason other than me speaking the truth about a situation that had conspired. That's the same person who didn't care about how we were going to get where we were going to get. So how is it that they were doing that out of concern just in case something were to happen? See, we got to start thinking, we got to start getting our head out of our asses and out of some of this gaslighting. So on one breath, it was done just in case something happened to him, they can locate, but that's the same people who didn't care when they kicked us out in the middle of the night, not knowing nobody. That's the same person who didn't care of how we were going to get where we were going to get. So which one is it? Which one is it? They're concerned or they're not. Mm-hmm. Which currently, her and her birther think, possibly currently, maybe this is in the past, that they're getting away or sweeping something under the rug. They could be listening to some elite bitches and niggas and practitioners, but they actually do think that. So now, these are entrapment tools because it exploits somebody's vulnerability. It exploits someone's circumstance. It exploits their lack of resources and their lack of those things for the purposes of entrapment or illegal surveillancing and tracking. And that's exactly what that laptop was used for. It had absolutely zero to do with true kindness, benevolence, or any true, sincere generosity towards my son. You can't have that and was doing weird, toxic, abusive shit to them on one hand, and on the other hand, you giving them a laptop. Come on. So technology is something I even believe on a governmental level. So I said I was going to use one type of an example. So what are they exploiting about people in lack that they have actually manufactured? Their desire for what? To have technology, their desire to, um, get items that they cannot otherwise pay for. And for all intensive purposes, on the surface, once again, this seems like a very generous and kind act because they're footing out the bill. They're that's another video because these people are granted all sorts of allotments and fundings and grants for things, so it's not as generous as as kind and selfless. There's so much more to that. But that's the exploitation of lack. They don't have a computer. They don't have a cell phone. They don't have a smartphone. They don't have a tablet, an iPad, or whatever all these things is. And everybody wants one. So get you a government phone. Get you a government phone. All you need is to be a part of one of these programs. All you need is to have, Medicaid, Medicare, food stamps, WIC. There's a list, SSI. There's a list of government, types of programmings that automatically qualifies you to get those things. And I'm not anti those things. I'm not saying don't get those things. I'm saying, hey, because sometimes that might be very well all that you have. But just understand what it comes with. Know that it is just a tool of entrapment, because they're going to always tell us, well, yeah, sure, I'm surveillance you, though I'm not supposed to, but yeah, I am watching you whenever I feel like it, and I'm looking at your emails and your text messages, your search history, and I'm tracking your movement and location and your spending, and I'm tracking where you go. Sure, I'm doing all of that. Sure, I'm tapping into that and listening to listening to your conversations and all sorts of things, your secrets and everything and in between at will. And if I have any hidden dishonor, if I want to be a part of any nefarious things, this will come into play for me because I have already gotten access to you via these electronics, this technology that we, air quote, gave to you for, air quote, free. Yeah, free, all right. It ain't free. It's costing your right to privacy. It's costing your right to dignity. It's costing your civil and human rights. Free? Is it? If they want to hire a retarded, you know what I'm saying? Dumbass, retarded ass, crackhead ass, bony folded up motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Or some fucking Humpty Dumpty, hungry hippo motherfucker. Whatever the case may be. The only reason why I talk like that, y'all, believe it or not, I say this constantly. I'm not really into body shaming, but they are, toxic people are. They're the ones that's always, kind of nitpicking at people's flaws, bypassing their own. So that's why you'll hear me clown ever so often about those things. Because I'm like, nigga, please, Negro. Get your bony ass the fuck up on out. Like if the wind blow too hard, you're done. You're done. Shit. Gonna fold up any minute now. Might want to put that cig down. But back to what I'm saying. Back to what I'm saying. So, so you're gonna now, some of you all are gonna forever look at things differently as it pertains to people just so quick to so-called wanna help you. They want to help you. They want to support you. Here's this device. So technology is something that is definitely used. Of course, there's other examples of entrapment, and I've talked about it on other videos, how they take advantage of vulnerable situations you have, and then now you are indebted, and so they basically can kind of torture you through that because they fronted you a certain amount of money. This is why they get upset when that debt is cleared. That's why they often are looking for some other means and some other ways to have you entrapped. Okay? And again, all respect, I get it. We're all out here. You're going to do what you have to do. What I'm learning is that those subtle nudges and those subtle feelings were not always paranoia. It was not always hypervigilance and trauma response and ultra sensitivity. In some cases, it was spot on. It was, in more cases than not, it was spot on. It all comes out in the wash, though, later. Meanwhile, in real time, when you try to tell anybody any of these things, they're laughing at you, they don't take you seriously, or they think that you're tripping. Okay? So let's apply this to relationships. I kind of spoke on it on a grander scale, and I spoke on it in terms of like, familia. But this also applies to these friendships and romantic partnerships, on the masculine and the feminine side. Depends on who's in the position of power or who has the tools and who has the money and the resources. Okay? These are things they will be so quick to willing to do for you. Hey, you want to get a phone? Let's say you can't get a phone that you want, and you have a type of phone that you want, and you can't get one, and then they'll say something like, well, let's go get a family plan. I can put us on a family plan, and I'm able to get it, just cover your own portion. Or they may present that to you, and it sounds great, and it's like, well, yeah, we're in a relationship, and we're in a committed relationship, and why not? And again, I'm not here to say don't do it. I'm not here to say it's wrong. I'm just here to say, well, understand and be aware of what that actually comes with, because that means they have right to have access to your device. I don't care how you want to flip this. They have a right to access that device. If they're the account holder, the primary account owner and holder, then they have a right to access your device and everything going on with it. They have a right to track it. They have a right to look at the emails, the messages, the phone calls, the apps, you name it. And what does that give us? See, we don't understand that since we become such a technological society, then that's your whole life. That's basically your life, all your shit, your banking, all of that. Correct. That is what you're giving them. This is another reason why in some of these cases, in some of these relationships, it's not just because of they have a deep intuitive feeling. In some cases, it's because, nigga, bitch, they been on your shit. They see who you looking at on Instagram and, Tinder swindler, They see, they're looking at all of your activity. They know you talking to somebody. They know you looking at somebody's pictures. Yeah, but they can't say that to you because then it would reveal the fact that they have already cracked into your accounts and your phones because they have a right to do it. Okay. Another thing about these relationships, it's again, and I'm not telling nobody, you know, what to do. And Osiris, look how you busted. Osiris, leave that alone. Osiris, where's your toy? You need to leave that alone. What you up over there doing? You're gonna get it. You're gonna get a spanky. You want his spanky? You want to have a sore rump? You're gonna have a sore booty. Where's your toy? Where he mouse? Go get him mouse. Yes. Lord have mercy. This cat is hilarious. Okay, now back to what I was saying. Um, back to what I was saying. Some of the other things that they'll do is, this is to do with like, we already said like phones, computers, and vehicles. Because now vehicles is also something I kind of connected with technology as well. Whether this is co-signing, purchasing, sharing, and on the surface, this looks harmless and it looks kind and selfless, but these things are used as instruments of power, leverage, and control when you're dealing with communal narcissism that people lean into when they're wanting to entrap you, to put you in a bubble, to make you limited and stuck so that you can't, rise above them or get out of their little framework, little bubble that they want to put you in and want to keep you in. Okay. So it starts off like, oh, we're happy. And this is going to always be when you're in the honeymoon phases. It's going to always be when you're in the euphoric phases of something. Even if you're typically used to going through an abuse cycle with the person, it's going to be on the side of where it's that high, right? Before devaluation happens again and discarding. So it's going to be like, oh, I'll get you a car. I'll get you a cell phone. I'll get you an apartment in some cases. But again, if it's tied to, if they have any legal ties at all, that's still power. Unless they are purchasing all out where it's entirely yours and they're not on it at all, that's the only possibility. But usually you're on there. The person is on there somewhere. And when the rubber meets the road, if they want to pull rank, if they want to make a problem, when you attempt to get out of the bubble that they've put you in, when you realize that this was entrapment, then they're gonna pull that. Well, both are y'all done seen this play out on a people's court. Shit. Both our names, my name is on there too. My name, you know what I'm saying? My name is on there too. My name is on there too. So what you go, there you go. It was entrapment. It was for leverage. It was for control. But it started out something beautiful. It started out looking like somebody was so in love with you, didn't it? It started out as looking like somebody was just a ride or die for you. They was just a Bonnie to your Clyde or a Clyde to your Bonnie. It started out looking like it was nothing that this person wouldn't do for you. No lengths they wouldn't go. That's what it started out looking like, that honeymoon phase, the euphoric side of the abuse cycle. It started out looking like, oh, look how sprung they are over me. They're willing to run up their credit cards for me. Look how sprung. Look how, you know, look how sprung they are. Look how, you know, they'll do anything. They're paying for Magic Mountain, bitch. They're paying for camp. They're paying for, vacations. They're doing all of these things. And another way it turns into entrapment is this. On the flip side, it's kind of like if something goes wrong. Let's say if these are criminal acts and criminal illegal activities, PPE loans, insurance scams, insurance fraud, whatever, if there's any crookedness to what they're doing, it becomes now blackmail, because if you were in the know of it and you participated in it and allowed it, when you're ready to be free, then they're going to implicate you. And if they had you to participate on any level that's traceable whatsoever, then they will use that. When you try to get out that bubble, when you try to get from under their leash, okay, they will be like, if you do this, I'm going to tell the cops, whoop-de-whoop, we going to all go down. We going to all go down. Because you knew about it and you didn't have a problem with it. And you know what I'm saying? You agreed to do this and this and that. And I got proof that you agreed to do this and this and that. So we going to all go down then. So if you leave, this is going to all go up in smoke. If you do this, because I got you entrapped. You agreed, you participated, and you was cool with it. And now that you want to get out the bubble, this is another thing that will end up happening with this communal narcissistic behavior, that once again, in the honeymoon phases, it seems like a dream come true. It seems like the person right on time in your life to make all of your problems go away and to grant you all the things that you never had access to get, so it seemed. Buying off your family members, or kissing the ass of your family, your friends, and got, all sorts of stuff, because they throwing down them C notes left and right. Because they know that most people are bought and sold. They know that most people are not as integral and decent as they think they are, and as they are trying to convince the world that they are. So these are types, these are examples, okay? Entrapment. I already gave the example about my situation with me and my son, relocating from Nevada to Texas. That was entrapment. That was criminal entrapment. That was taking advantage of a situation, knowing that we had no knowledge about Texas or anything to do with it, exploiting a program to their advantage to get us trapped, because what are they going to do? They don't have any resources. They don't know anybody, and I can really milk this for all it's worth. And the way they do that is they appear all too helpful when you're in a crisis, willing to go and foot the deposits to the electric company, the water company, when you don't have it, just to ensure that you take the deal. Willing to work with you because you can't leave right away, so willing to wait and hold the space. All these things look like miracles. They seem like miracles. They seem like, what you need right on time. But when you're dealing with criminals and communal narcissists who are exploitatory and predatory in nature, this is how they do it. It's rarely going to be something that is obvious. It's going to be something like that. They take advantage of vulnerabilities. And so what can we take from all of this? Well, don't beat yourself up, because again, this stuff, nobody is going to look at it on face value and automatically assume. But it's always the subtleties, the subtle nuances, the nudges, the underlining eerie feeling that are there for a reason. And beyond that, let's go practical. Let's even go literal and practical for you practicalities like myself out there. When you go through the school of hard knocks and you start just counting up the cost and evaluating certain things, you start asking yourself the questions: if this, then that; if this, then that; what if this? Okay, if I take this so-called kindness, what kind of predicament, what are the possible outcomes of this situation? Should it not turn out right? Should I want to leave? What's the potentiality on good side and on the bad side? And if you are able to say, well, if I do this and if for some reason I need to leave or it doesn't work out, and this person could possibly have power and control, or I may be stuck, then at least from that perspective, you can still reevaluate it, even if you don't want to just rely on nudges, senses, or intuition. You can even go on the practical. Okay, if I roll with this, what's the potentials? Because the reality is some stuff don't work out. People switch up on us. We didn't live long enough to know that. People will switch up on us. People aren't always as sound in the mind as we think they are, or as they pretend to be. And when the rubber meets the road, when it ends, that's only when you find out how screwy in the head they were, based on the behaviors they get into after. And by then it's too late. So one of the things we can do is, even from a practical standpoint, go, okay, this is the potentiality for this. If this goes bonkers, I may be handing over my power. I may be putting myself in a predicament here that they may be able to use leverage. And maybe this is not what I want to do, because I want to be able to move about freely without any weird, wrongful consequences attached to me or my life. And does it mean that we may be inconvenienced a little bit longer? What I'm discovering, well, yeah. When you're not, because you're going to have to maybe struggle through something a little bit longer. Or it may take longer, or just, it's like you do, but you don't, because you gain a certain level of liberties and freedoms that you don't have when you're taking these handouts. This is a part of why I want to get my son out of housing, and I want to get us away from apartment complexes altogether. Yep. Because again, there's this intrusive energy about that. You deal with the ghetto-ness, because it's like when you're in these types of things, you can bet your bottom dollar it's some trash. And yeah, I said that because when I say ghetto-ness and trash, I'm not talking about like a look or status or a certain amount of money or vehicles, because some of these people got Benzes, baby. So we're not talking about that. Talking about their behavior, their conduct. Okay, their immaturity, the lack of maturation that they have, and what comes with that lack of maturation. Even though you could be dealing with fully grown individuals, you're dealing with a playground full of overgrown children. Junkies, addicts, drunkards. You know what I mean? That they're okay with that. And that's where they live, and that's where they'll die. Entrapment, technology, communal narcissism. I'm really starting to look at all this way. I look at all these apps that we have to use. This means everything is traceable. You got to use an app. You got to open an app, an app, an app, an app. People are, Spectrum and Verizon and all these people. You can tap and clone and all of those things. I discovered somebody that hacked into my account yesterday. One of them go by the name of Ann. The other one could possibly go by the name of Crystal. Yep, caught them yesterday. Because they always slip up at some point. And in some cases, they just do it just to see if you're paying attention. So, for you onlookers out there that is so under the spell of these narcissists because they look like the biggest contributors or givers in a community, in a family, in a culture, in a business, well, it's going to serve you to educate yourself, because that's going to help you to decipher between shit. If you don't know what goes on behind the scene of generosity, you don't know what's going on at the other end. On top of the fact that with communal narcs, like all narcs, they don't abuse everybody. They don't. This is what makes it difficult. This is a choice. This is how you know it is an active decision that they make, because they do not abuse everybody. This is what throws people off too. Because then a person is going to have to go and run with their personal experience, which, since they're not the target, then they were not being abused. So just because this person has been able to seem to display kindness or generosity to group A and not be abusive or intrusive and didn't violate them, it does not automatically mean that that's something that they're not capable of. They have their targets that they do that to, and it's usually those that they're jealous of, those that they don't like, and those who know the truth about them. Those who see them, because that's what narcs say, those who see them for what they are and not kissing their ass like the rest of the ones that's under their spell singing their praises. So they typically will attempt some kind of entrapment an attack on those persons to try to sabotage and yeah. Okay. All right. So there you have it. Criminal entrapment. That is something that me and my son have been a target and victim of. I am definitely in the process of dealing with all of these individuals, these groups, these companies, and their participation in that. And yes, I am pursuing it. I've gotten counsel and I continue to do so. Um, so, yeah. But even before I do that, I'm scoping out the scene of where you even have to do those filings to find out their linkage to any of the people that are incriminated. Because if I find any linkage, I'm going to even note that and I'm going to take it even a step further. Because again, this is how these corrupt businesses, governments, organizations, and communities are able to do. So I'm going to be notating in that. Well, the place that you go to file for a RICO, the nigga know the whole, and you know that you, yeah. So mo folks maybe, end up in some kind of hot water here. And rightfully so. Because if an apartment complex, if a government agency, whatever the case may be, allowing themselves to be used in that way, they do need to be dealt with then. If they're, aware of certain things and they participated with another landlord and they, to manufacture a certain placement, to be around certain toxic individuals that were involved, then they will be dealt with as well.